Tonight on the wrap, civil war in the Labour Party. The cabinet is divided, 4 ministers have quit and nearly 90 Labour MPs are calling on Keir Starmer to go. But the Prime Minister has thrown down the gauntlet to his critics: challenge him or get on with your jobs. The man who could decide if these are Keir Starmer's final days in Downing Street is the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. The two will hold talks inside Number 10 tomorrow.
When Wes Streeting walks through this door tomorrow morning, will he tell the Prime Minister he's poised to mount a challenge, or will he, as some MPs are claiming tonight, have bottled it?
But the Prime Minister has his supporters too. 111 MPs have publicly backed Starmer and declared this is no time for a leadership contest. And as the Labour Party falls out with itself, there are reports that the palace has voiced concerns about the King being dragged into the political crisis when he attends tomorrow's state opening of Parliament. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with the former Conservative Special Advisor, Salma Shah, and Keir Starmer's former Director of Communications, James Lyons, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including yet more speculation over the PM's future. Well, hello, good evening. Another astonishing day then at Westminster. More resignations, a divided Labour Party, and we still don't know if Wes Streeting will back the Prime Minister or try to take his job. Well, Salma and James, it's not over yet, but is the PM doomed?
Well, we're all doomed. That's the human condition. It's just a question of when.
Well, I mean, what I find absolutely astonishing about this is that we thought we were over all these leadership contests with the Tory psychodrama, but yet it continues. So it doesn't feel like it's history being made, but rather a bit of a repeat of a playbook.
So our political editor, Beth Rigby, has spent the day at Downing Street. This is her report.
The weekly gathering of Cabinet, but nothing run-of-the-mill about this.
Ed Miliband, is it time for Keir Starmer to stand down? Are you going to tell him to go, sir? Are you going to tell him to go? Can the PM hold on? Is it all over for Keir Starmer, sir?
A huge amount at stake.
Wes Streeting, are you going to challenge the Prime Minister? Wes Streeting, are you challenging for the Labour leadership, sir? What are you going to say to Keir Starmer?
For a Prime Minister teetering on the edge.
Are you backing Keir Starmer? Peter, are you backing Keir Starmer or Wes Streeting? Liz, are you backing Keir Starmer?
Now questions being openly asked about whether the Cabinet should call time on Starmer as calls for his resignation continue to grow from mutinous Labour MPs and ministerial aides. But the PM kicking off Cabinet by digging in, telling colleagues the last 48 hours had been destabilising for the government, that a leadership challenge had not yet been triggered, and as such, he and his Cabinet should get on with the job of governing. Cabinet over and the fight back in full throttle, loyalists lining up to voice support. Baroness Chapman, you have been a long-term ally and close friend of Keir Starmer's.
Yes.
You've known him a long time. How is he?
He's great. He's good. He's focused. He's resilient. He's determined. He's not... I've heard some people say that he is, like, obstinately, or being defiant. That is not at all his vibe.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened. So we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do.
But is it How was Cabinet, and what did everyone say when Keir Starmer said a leadership race had not been triggered?
Well, it's the fact. We've had a very purposeful Cabinet meeting talking about the big issues facing our economy and society.
Ms Kendall, what happened in the Cabinet?
This government will do what we were elected to do, which is serve the British people. The Prime Minister has my full support in this.
But then the ministerial resignations began. First, Miatta Fambule, Housing Minister. Then, the biggest name yet, Jess Phillips, the Safeguarding Minister, who told the PM, I know you care deeply, but deeds, not words, are what matter. Next came Alex Davis-Jones, the Victims Minister, followed by Zabir Ahmed, a Health Minister and key Streeting ally. And in response, by late afternoon, another loyalist, David Lammy, was dispatched.
No one seems to have the names to stand up against Keir Starmer. And for those who are suggesting that he should stand down, they should say which candidate would be better. Let's get on with the business of running this country and government. That's what I've been doing today.
It's a little calmer in number 10 this evening. One insider tells me the mood is a lot better tonight than it was this morning, as cabinet ministers and more than 100 MPs come out publicly to support the embattled PM. I'm told by senior figures that many left-leaning MPs are rowing in behind Keir Starmer because they want to wait for Andy Burnham to be back in Parliament before they move against the Prime Minister. But it's all extremely uncertain. Over 85 MPs want Starmer gone. And there's a very open question as to whether Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, will try to trigger a leadership race. He comes to number 10 on Wednesday for a showdown with Starmer.
For now, the PM adopting a keep calm and carry on approach, out meeting apprentices this afternoon. But as they embark on their careers, this is a Prime Minister mulling the end of his own. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, let's go straight to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who is outside a still busy Downing Street for us this evening. A really big day tomorrow. We've got the King's speech, John. But before that, our understanding is that Wes Streeting, walks in those doors or goes the back route in to have this meeting with Keir Starmer that he tried to have today.
He wanted to see the Prime Minister after the Cabinet, but he was rebuffed. Go away, far too busy, he was told. And that's why, when a lot of ministers came to this spot here and talked to journalists and professed their loyalty to Sir Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting was seen a bit later scurrying down the street, didn't talk to anyone. Now, he's been spotted talking to one or two of those colleagues who have quit today. For example, one of his ministers and his parliamentary aide. And of course, all the talk today is about whether Wes Streeting is going to mount a challenge. Tonight, some are claiming that he's bottled it, that he's lost his nerve, he's not going to. Well, we shall find out tomorrow. He'll either say, look, Prime Minister, I think we need to have a contest, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, or he's going to say, I back you for now. What we don't know either is what if there is going to be a contest, the timetable, because of course it suits Mr Streeting to go quickly. He's in Parliament, everybody says he's got a team ready, but Andy Burnham of course is not in Parliament. The Prime Minister meanwhile remains defiant. He's launched a real fight back today, both at the Cabinet, refused to let Cabinet Ministers discuss the crisis with him. He just read his statement about how a very legalistic statement, no doubt drafted by his brief Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, saying, look, there's no process underway yet, a bit like a lawyer saying, if you're not going to charge my client, you've got to let him go. So the Prime Minister lives to fight another day. He will go to the House of Commons and have a showdown with Kemi Badenoch and no doubt some of the critics on his own back benches. So it's a big day again tomorrow. PM's also had a pretty frosty phone call by all accounts tonight with John Swinney, the SNP First Minister in Scotland, about independence. No agreement there, of course, and he has filled some of the posts very quickly of those ministers that resigned. The most eye-catching one, Natalie Fleet, who replaces Jess Phillips at the Home Office.
Updating us there. Thank you very much indeed. Well, James, you only left in September. You know all the characters involved here. How are you feeling about Keir Starmer? Do you feel empathy, sympathy for him? What's your mood?
Well, look, if I was in Downing Street tonight, I would be feeling an awful lot happier than I was this morning. I think he will still be forced to decide to go with some choice of his own kind of timing and manner at some point, or have that decision made for him. But that hasn't happened today, and it wasn't always obvious that it wouldn't happen today. And he's done it in the most Keir Starmer-like way possible. Ruthless adherence to the meeting's agenda. We will not be discussing me standing down as Prime Minister because it is not on the Cabinet agenda. It's a stroke of brilliance.
Yeah, I mean, he took to his bunker, didn't he? I mean, it seems flat refusing to have this meeting with West Streeting, which has been knocked into tomorrow morning, as if they didn't have enough to do tomorrow. What do you make of Keir Starmer's approach today?
I think this is obviously a survival strategy, but it's very short-termist, because how are you actually going to then repel what we've seen as 87 MPs publicly calling for his resignation, and clearly the race really being on? So Burnham talking about in the papers tomorrow, tomorrow's resignation day might be sort of announcing a pathway into Parliament. West Streeting obviously primed to go. Angela Rayner stating through sources that if West Streeting is primed to go, then she will also throw her hat into the ring. Unfortunately, what happens is that the Prime Minister, by its nature of everything else going round, has lost control. So the manner of his departure is really no longer his. It's how other people are going to act and behave.
The problem is, though, that when you talk about those MPs calling for the Prime Minister to go, some of them are on the Burnham bus and some of them are on the Streeting Express. And they want very different outcomes. So for months, the Labour Party has been stuck in a kind of Mexican standoff because, Andy Burnham wasn't in Parliament. Angela Rayner and her supporters don't want Wes. Wes and his supporters don't want Angela. Andy can't come back in. He might have a chance of bringing them all together. And they're all stood there, in my head, clutching bananas rather than guns, sort of David Miliband style. Catherine West lobbed a grenade into that over the weekend, but now we seem to be heading back towards standoff again because people are ahead of the... So the next general election will be textual voting and people will be voting about who they don't want in Downing Street rather than who they do. But the Labour Party's got there before all of us.
I totally get that, but that is talking through the tactics of what's in front of you. The prevailing issue is that the confidence has gone, not least because of the local election results. And I've always thought that that's a bad measure to judge a government against, but nonetheless, people are feeling it, and that's why MPs have started to manoeuvre. But once you lose the confidence of the government, you can no longer hold the government. And I think that is the issue.
Let's hear from some of those. Hold your thought for a moment, because, you've both mentioned the 87. We've seen some of their images. Worth bearing in mind at this point that 113 Labour MPs have actually come out and publicly backed the Prime Minister today, but nearly 90, as you've both said, want him to go. Should we hear from some of them?
Let me just repeat, that is the Labour Party that has the mandate. And he, with what is the most disastrous local authority election result in living memory, he should consider his position.
This just can't go on. And as I've said all of yesterday, if we carry on like this, we are literally giving the keys away to the front of number 10 to Nigel Farage.
Leadership is about knowing when to lead and knowing when to step down. And I think Keir Starmer must come to that realisation now that the country isn't behind him. At a time when we need real unity in our country, someone that can bring the country together, he has got to think beyond himself now.
We need to have certainty about the future direction of the Labour Party in this government, and I hope everyone can come together and start setting out this process, because it's clear when you look at the numbers, nearly 100 MPs now have come out and said that they think it's time for leadership. You can't put that genie back into the bottle.
So why can't he come to this realisation that those who want him to stand down say is blindingly obvious right now, that it's over for him?
Well, I think that there were so many usual suspects in those clips that I was expecting Kevin Spacey to put an appearance in. I mean, if Labour Prime Ministers resigned every time that Diane Abbott asked them to, we would get through them at an even greater rate of knots.
Yeah, and yet you've said some of them were West Streeting supporters, some of them are Andy Burnham supporters, and they clearly span different parts of the party, and that's when it becomes... If it's just the left, then you could understand it. But
in fairness, Chris Curtis is not part of that. But I think he's probably Wes adjacent, if I can put it like that.
Yeah. Well, there's the picture there at Downing Street. I mean, we've got images. Actually, should we see what Sophie Ridge had to offer earlier about what it's been like all day outside number 10 Downing Street with the pack on standby, obviously for the cabinet. We've already seen so many of them have decided to come out and speak, which in itself is fairly unusual, is it not? That cabinet ministers come out to speak to the press.
Incredibly unusual. The usual form is that you walk up the street, you go into cabinet, you say good morning, you walk out and you don't make any contact with the press. So clearly there was some kind of coordinated attempt to ensure that the airwaves were carrying some kind of positive Starmer message. I don't think that's necessarily wrong per se, but it is unique. I think what's really fascinating about this is that we're in a situation where clearly outside of the Labour Party, with other actors, so you'll read, in all the coverage of the bond market's reaction, diplomatic reaction, it is all negative of the idea of changing a Prime Minister. And personally, even as a Conservative supporter, I think it is more destabilising to get rid of a Prime Minister. The fact is that the confidence is draining, and if he doesn't stem that, then that is going to carry on.
Yeah, let's have a look then at what was an extraordinary day in number 10, or outside number 10. Here's Sophie Ridge.
So I'm currently sitting on the floor in Downing Street, and I just want to give you a sense of what is actually happening behind the scenes on days like this, because it is slightly nuts. You can see this lovely alley, but you can see the whole host of reporters and journalists. It's quite sunny today, sitting outside that door right there, number 10. I've been here before, but you can often tell just how much pressure a Prime Minister's is under by the number of people here, and it is packed.
So, James, what's it like, when you're in number 10 and you look down on everyone there, waiting to see every twist and turn, when actually your neck is on the line?
You're not looking down on them metaphorically.
I'm always looking up, given my height. But, I mean, it is always a very surreal experience. But I think, actually, what we saw there, I mean, it's not unprecedented for cabinet ministers to come out and speak to the cameras. And it may have been a bit of an anticlimax today, because if you remember when Michael Heseltine quit, he stormed straight out of the cabinet and resigned on camera in the street afterwards. But I thought the problem with today's statements from cabinet ministers is 5 of them came out and made supportive statements and the rest didn't. And that rather, speaks to the position the Prime Minister finds himself in. But also, 4 of them you'd expect to be backing Wes Streeting. So it also spoke to the position that Wes Streeting finds himself in. And, of course, Wes Streeting stalked off down the street. I mean, he's never knowingly walked away from a TV camera in his life.
Well, I mean, that does then suggest what people have been saying, and in fact what John Craig just said earlier, that perhaps the Health Secretary doesn't have the level of support, and it goes back to your point of the Mexican standoff. But this is now going to be the conversation that dominates the rest of the week. We've got the King's speech tomorrow. The legislative agenda is not going to get the look in, which might have been a pivot point for the Prime Minister, because the energy will belong to everybody that's now briefing, positioning, not necessarily against the Prime Minister, but against other potential candidates. I mean, I hate to use this cliche, but it's so apt, which is, when this happened to Boris Johnson, when the herd moves, that's it. There isn't really any coming back from this. And I think it would be an absolute miracle if the Prime Minister was not setting out a timetable this week for his departure.
Well, I bumped into Jacob Rees-Mogg when I was in Westminster yesterday, and we were stood a few metres from Peter Kyle, who was doing the morning round defending the Prime Minister. And Jacob said to me, my heart goes out to him. He's doing a great job, but he's doing the job I had to do for Boris.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, you both have experience with that. We'll come on to that a bit later on. But many Labour MPs obviously believe Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham should be their next leader. Reports that he was coming down today, potentially has meetings speaking to Labour MPs. The former Deputy Leader, Harriet Harman, now obviously working alongside Keir Starmer, as we saw on Friday, told Beth Rigby on the Electoral Dysfunction podcast today that he should be given a job in the Cabinet.
If we're looking at having a team of all the talents when the country's facing terrible odds and the Labour Party is got a cloud hanging over it, clearly Andy is part of the solution to that. And could it be that Keir Starmer could say, actually, we need all the people in cabinet to be the very best people for the country, and that includes Andy Burnham, and I'm going to call him back in, and he's going to be part of my government.
Are you saying now you think that the PM should allow Andy Burnham back, that actually it would be a good idea to let Andy Burnham come back to Westminster?
Well, if he can construct a sense that the cabinet is there to support the Prime Minister to do the best for the country in very difficult circumstances, if he can really build that sense, then why on earth would he not have Andy Burnham as part of that?
Well, the former Labour advisor, John McTernan, also spoke to us today. He suggested that actually the NEC, which works for the good of the Labour Party, could potentially change the rules and allow a non-Labour MP to actually stand in a contest to become Prime Minister. He also suggested it's not a case of when, not a case of if, it's a case of how you get rid of Keir Starmer. Let's listen to some of what he had to say, reflecting on the fact that some in the Cabinet have not yet moved against Keir Starmer.
He wants to be the first mover because there is no first mover advantage. The only advantage of stasis, however, is Keir in number 10. But there's no credibility because in the end, you can't take responsibility for defeats electorally without taking accountability. And there is no accountability in number 10, even though they contributed to all of this electoral disaster, and they have no political theory, no theory of change, no theory of practice, of policy, communications that can actually deal with this thing.
So is there any mechanism to bring Andy Burnham into the Cabinet? Is there any chance at all that the rules might be changed to allow him to stand? And if he does not stand, will it be a false contest because half the party wanted him and not whoever might get it?
Well, I'm a huge admirer of John, but I'm not entirely sure that allowing someone to become a Labour leader and then de facto Prime Minister and then making them stand in a by-election is going to work. But we should also take a moment to appreciate how well the decision to appoint Harriet Harman, a government advisor, over the weekend has gone, because anyone calling for Andy Burnham to be in the Cabinet now is effectively calling for him to be the Prime Minister.
I also just have to make a point that constitutionally, a Prime Minister has to be chosen from the ranks of Parliament. So I admire John for thinking outside of the box, but there might be some legal limitations to his suggestion.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember covering the reshuffle where Tony Blair accidentally abolished the Lord Chancellor, and that feels like one of those out-of-the-box moments.
Well, maybe he could make him a peer and put him in the House of Lords and give him a cabinet position.
Well, of course, Peter Mandelson was the Lord President of the Board of Trade.
He was business secretary, yes.
We've had a few like that, haven't we? City ministers, I remember as well, for example. Now, there was a report earlier by Stephen Swinford of The Times suggesting that Ed Miliband had told some cabinet ministers that he is prepared to run for the Labour leadership if West Streeting triggers an imminent contest. We know that Ed Miliband has now denied that. This is mischief-making, sources close to the Energy Secretary have said. It is categorically untrue that Ed told cabinet colleagues that he was preparing to stand in case of a contest. But if West Streeting does throw his hat into the ring, who on the soft left, as it's known, I'm not quite sure why, would stand, do you think?
I mean, this is the story that will not die. And look, it's only...
Which, the Ed Miliband part?
Yeah, it's only weeks ago that when the Prime Minister was at another near-death moment over Peter Mandelson, that Ed Miliband said the Labour MPs had stared into the abyss and pulled back. But what we're seeing at the moment is the Labour MPs are once again staring into the abyss and seeing Ed Miliband grinning back, and that is putting them off mounting a leadership challenge. Some people are going around saying, back Wes, get Ed.
So that's why they're making the mischief entirely, because there is a potential threat that comes down from having Ed Miliband as a candidate. And unfortunately, we're going to see so much of this, the briefing, the counter-briefing, the rumours spreading, because this is, unfortunately, what happens when a government is destabilised.
I mean, people will look at the Labour Party and think you've got 400 MPs through the door. You're talking about Andy Burnham, who failed twice to be leader, Ed Miliband, who went to the country and failed to be Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who failed to pay her taxes, and you can't find anybody else. I mean, why not?
Look, this is a really big issue for UK politics and also, by extension, probably politics in all Western liberal democracies. And it's not particularly a Labour issue, it's not particularly a Conservative issue, but people are not attracted to coming into politics. So you end up with these reruns. For example, Harriet Harman and Gordon Brown coming back into government, David Cameron turning up in Rishi's, last throes as Foreign Secretary. And so I think there is a big problem in that we keep having reruns and there isn't that much fresh talent coming through. So we've got to ask ourselves a bit more deeper, meaningful questions about this.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, there are historical precedents for people being allowed another go. Harold Wilson obviously, contested a number of elections.
You're going back a bit.
I'm going back a bit there, yeah. But my point is that this isn't something new.
Yeah, I did even hear Tony Blair could be brought back as Foreign Secretary. Talking of which, Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair...
She coming back? Sorry.
They both spent more than a decade in Downing Street. That's a bit beyond the pale, to be honest, anyway. But recent Prime Ministers seem to have a similar level of job security to Premier League football managers. Let's take a look at this, and you'll appreciate some of this because these are your people. So Prime Minister's time in number 10. Theresa May, 3 years and 11 days. Boris Johnson, 3 years and 44 days. Liz Truss? Go on then, 49 days. Rishi Sunak, 1 year, 8 months, 10 days. And then on to Sir Keir Starmer, so far 1 year, 10 months and 8 days. Now, you remember Theresa May, do you? What happened?
Indeed, I do. So we were in the Home Office at the time, and this is again, the instability of the electorate, where you're looking at... Theresa May having taken the premiership from David Cameron, going to the country against Jeremy Corbyn and essentially losing the majority, the tiny majority that we had at that time, and then ending up basically having to manage not a full coalition as it was with the Lib Dems, but having to manage a supply agreement with the DUP. And so that, in and of itself, became another layer of complexity that was being brought into government, which was, frankly, very difficult to manage at the time, with a resurgent Jeremy Corbyn who'd come back, having lost the 2017 election, but having gained so much from the Conservatives, that her position right from the get-go of coming back into Downing Street was essentially untenable.
I mean, French presidents have 7 years, America 4, we're supposed to have 5. We can't get anywhere near 4. What has happened to British politics that we're going through this churn, that actually we're not satisfied with who's leading us at each point?
Sorry, I was a bit distracted there by the men in grey suits coming to excommunicate Starmer from the Tory party.
That happened a long time ago.
But look, I think that to be serious briefly for a moment here, what has happened is that living standards in this country have stagnated for the best part of 2 decades, or even reversed. The electorate are thoroughly fed up. The country is much poorer than it was in every sense. And therefore, you see patience is running out with politics to deliver. And the electorate keep taking the opportunity to press a big red button, mark change, every chance they get. They did it with Brexit, they did it with Boris, they did it with Labour. And they're going to keep hitting that big red button until their lives improve. And that, in itself, creates instability within the political system.
We need to get to a break. You had to hold your thought. We've got more to come. The lettuce is back. We've got Trump. We've got the papers. See you in a moment.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Well, we will be taking a look through the front pages in a moment. But first of all, let's go to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who is in Downing Street, with the breaking news that we now have details, or some of the details, of what will be in the King's speech tomorrow, John.
35 bills at least. That compares actually with 50 in the session that's just ended. A lot of the government announcement contains a lot of jargon, slogans and what critics would probably call cliches. A stronger and fairer Britain, for example, weathering the storm of global shocks, restoring hope, and talking about strengthening the UK's foundations, bolstering economic, energy, national security. They're talking about restoring order and control to the immigration system, strengthening public services, reforming the state, more active government. The Prime Minister says the British people expect the government to get on with the job of changing our country for the better, cutting the cost of living, bringing down hospital waiting lists, keeping our country safe in an increasingly dangerous world. He's claiming that Britain stands at a pivotal moment, press ahead with a plan, build a stronger, fairer country, all turn back to the chaos and instability of the past. Does he mean the past 24 hours there? I'm not sure. Anyway, under headings energy, economic, energy and national security, for example, protection for small businesses, reforms to regulate, drive growth and innovation, changes to give businesses the confidence to invest and grow. Now, how about this? We need to get off the fossil fuel roller coaster with clean homegrown power. Energy's bitterly controversial, of course. Net zero madness, the Tories claim. Of course, Ed Miliband, who may or may not challenge for the Tory leadership or become Chancellor under a new leader, controversial figure with his net zero policies. He's obviously going to be front and centre if he remains as Energy Secretary. So strengthening our defences, keeping pace with modern technology from cyber attacks, countering state threats to disrupt the sharing of extreme content, ending the opportunity crisis. That's more help for schools, education, legislation to transform the school system, strengthen public services and so on, and easing the cost of living, removing barriers to growth. Obviously, the cost of living has been hit by the Iran war and the crisis in the Straits of Hormuz, so some things may be beyond the government's control. Anyway, packed programme of legislation. Let's wait and see what happens to that assisted dying bill. That will depend on an MP coming top or near the top of the private members' bill ballot. That, of course, is bitterly controversial. And anyway, packed programme. Big showdown in the Commons after all the pomp and ceremony with the King tomorrow. Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch debating for the first time since those local election results last week.
Will be truly fascinating. John Craig at Downing Street, thank you very much indeed. Well, time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. So the Metro, to start with, then calls the PM's residence number 10 Downing Street as uncertainty continues over how much longer Sir Keir Starmer will live there. According to the Financial Times, the Prime Minister used a cabinet meeting this morning to tell his team to either mount a leadership challenge or get behind him. The Eye phrases his message more bluntly, put up or shut up. The Guardian reports that despite allies of Wes Streeting being among the ministers who have resigned, an expected leadership challenge from the Health Secretary did not materialise today. But the Telegraph leads with Wes Streeting preparing for a showdown with Sir Keir in Downing Street tomorrow. The showdown is also reported by The Times. The Star says the PM is now leading a zombie government, or the talking dead, as it puts it. The Express pleads with him for the good of your country, go now. Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner are pictured next to the Prime Minister, which the Mirror calls a standoff. Crisis, what crisis, writes The Sun, as Keir Starmer gives a thumbs up despite fighting for his political life. Paralysed by Labour chaos, the Daily Mail offers a scathing view of events in Westminster. So let us talk more then with James and with Salma. What a day Wednesday will be. First of all, as many of the papers talk about, the face-off between Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer, straight into the King's Speech, 35 bills, a packed programme we are hearing. And then in the afternoon, the Prime Minister is supposed to stand in the Commons and face MPs. I mean, you know, you couldn't make up the timing of this, could you?
I mean, I think this is actually incredible because, I mean, as you see on the front of the eye, obviously we're talking about the details of this particular political crisis, but behind the scenes, there are other things that they would have to consider. So the palace reportedly is also feeling very awkward about the king being brought into this political fray, especially after he's just had quite a successful state visit to the US. So it takes the shine off this a little bit. Also, what I think...
Actually, let's have a look at that. It's
yes.
right at the top of the eye, isn't it, in the black picture. Palace held talks with Number 10 over the awkward situation for Charles. And certainly the numbers of MPs who came forward to start to say they want to see Keir Starmer step aside cooled. I wonder if, you know, you do wonder if word got out that actually everyone would need to lay off until tomorrow afternoon.
The people I've been speaking to today are definitely suggesting that there may have been a slight pause in hostilities so as not to embarrass the King. It's interesting, when the King rings out the King's Speech tomorrow, it will be on vellum, which is goat parchment. It has to be... The speech itself has to be finished a week in advance so that the ink can dry on the parchment. And you do wonder if the poor guy who was like writing, or girl who was writing it out, did wonder if it was all worth it about halfway through.
Well, I do think, though, from what John just said, I think it's fascinating. So we've got 35 bills, which is quite a hefty legislative agenda. And some of the language that was being used, more active government, which is already, I think, a concession to this soft left, because when the Prime Minister came into Downing Street, he very specifically, which gave a lot of heart to sort of centre-right people, said government will tread lightly on your lives. So already there is a big concession.
Gave hope to some centre-left people as well, Salma.
Well, yeah, well, apparently now it's not going to be that. Apparently there is going to be a more active government. So it's really interesting to see
but in good
that you've
news,
got
as
this
John's
coming.
told us, they're going to restore hope. So that's fantastic.
Well, because actually even one cabinet minister came out and suggested, and as so did Sadiq Khan as well in an interview as well, suggested that the doom and gloom from the get-go, you know, right from the £22 billion black hole, it's worse than we thought, talking down the economy, that started to resonate with people as well, hasn't it? Let's take a look at The Guardian. The Streeting challenge that did not materialise. Certainly one aide told a reporter that he had bottled it, or the concern was that he had bottled it. But he seems to be biding his time, yes, because there's no benefit in being first out the gate.
But the problem is, he's always said he wouldn't precipitate this himself. So that relies on somebody else doing it. And so far, nobody has stepped forward to do that. Now, we were told that the elections and the election results are going to be a crunch point. Then we were told that, you know, today's cabinet meetings are going to be a crunch point. And tomorrow we've got this other crunch point when Keir Starmer found time in his diary to actually meet with Wes Streeting, who I think spent a long time hanging around in 10 Downing Street today in the hope of getting a quick word. And, you know, I think there's every chance that could become a damn squib as well.
Yeah, Daily Telegraph, Streeting to confront Starmer. The Health Secretary showdown at Number 10 after the PM dares rivals to oust him, reminding everyone that nearly 90 Labour MPs have now called for a new leader as Andy Burnham visits backers in London. You know, what does this mean now for Wes Streeting? You know, suggestions that he may not have the numbers, that if he's made his allies and aides go over the top, why has he not? You know, what is his strategy?
I think this is very clearly somebody who is working up to momentum, but clearly having a lot of briefing against him to try and stall that momentum as well, particularly if there is only one, if you like, Blairite candidate, which Wes Streeting is, but a whole selection of soft left candidates. This is definitely supposed to be a strategy to try and ensure that Wes is out of the race, and it is a much more soft left race with the people that are contending for the premiership after that. So I would always take any of this reporting, especially if it's unsourced and it's not something that's come out of the horse's mouth, with a large pinch of salt, because this is all the sort of politicking that's going to go behind the scenes, because everybody's trying to assume certain positions about what their rivals are doing.
OK, more papers in just a moment. This is an international question, is it not? Keir Starmer has been very much at the forefront of international news. So let us go to America now and speak to our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who threw a question, Mark, to Donald Trump on what advice he would give Keir Starmer at this point. What did you learn?
Yeah, well, we'll play it for you in a minute, what he said. But I do think you make a really good point, Anna, that while Keir Starmer may have had many, many challenges domestically, it is the case, I think, that internationally he is well respected, even managing to forge a decent relationship, for a time at least. It's been a bit weavy of late, but for a time he forged a decent relationship with President Trump. But not only that, you know, he's been he's created this sort of bridge that Britain has become between Europe and the United States. He's been very, very vocal and really quite influential when it comes to Ukraine as well. So he has become an international figure in a way that you know, the potential other candidates really are not. I mean, Wes Streeting, has any other world leader heard of Wes Streeting? I pick him out, but you could apply that to many, many others. So internationally, it's true that Keir Starmer has in a kind of unlikely way, forged very important diplomatic relationships. Maybe he spent a bit too much time abroad, which is why he has had a few troubles back at home. But yeah, of course, President Trump has a view on everyone and everything. And so it seemed like a good idea to ask him if he has any advice for Keir Starmer, not least because he's friends with Keir Starmer's nemesis, Nigel Farage.
Thank you. Mark Stone from Sky News. What's your advice to Keir Starmer, sir? He seems to be on the brink.
Well, my advice to him has always been open up your oil in the North Sea. You got one of the great oil finds anywhere in the world, and you're not using it. They're not allowed to use it. And it's one of the best in the world, among the best oils in the world. Open up your oil in the North Sea and get tough on immigration.
Should he stay or go?
Europe is being very, very hurt by immigration all over Europe.
Should he stay or go?
That's up to him. But I've told him from day one, you're getting killed on energy. You're windmilling your country to death. Open up the North Sea. You have one of the greatest sources of energy in the world. Open up the North Sea.
The pressure is from Nigel Farage, sir.
Yeah, Mark, I hate to break it to him and to you if you are, you know, speaking to him. We've just had the details of the King's speech in which it literally says we need to get off the fossil fuel roller coaster with clean, homegrown power. What do you make of his intervention, Salma?
Well, I think it's interesting that he remained very focused on the policy issues, and it's quite surprising for the US president not to sort of wade straight in. Actually, quite diplomatic of him, I thought, to say, well, that's up to him, you know, what he decides to do. But clearly, obviously, a policy agenda, but not wrong, because there is obviously that issue in the UK that has been surrounding Ed Miliband about what we do about energy prices, and this divide about what happens to renewables versus going back to fossil fuels. So in some ways, very astute of the US president to pick on that.
Oh, no, these are hot issues, no doubt about it. You know, why we're leaving the North Sea and what to do about immigration. And the point that Mark made, the never hear Keir allegation as well. Has that also hindered his leadership and control of domestic policy?
Well, I think, you know, we have seen the country reap the benefits of some of that work. If you look at the, 3 trade deals signed in a matter of weeks with the EU, with the US and with India, and obviously national security cooperation with other parts of Europe. But I mean, it's interesting because actually today the Prime Minister he was involved in a Middle East committee, and these normally take place in secure rooms, often in the basement of number 10 with no phones. So for at least part of today, the Prime Minister was actually in a bunker.
Marvellous, as the allegation said. Meantime, Mark, from your point of view, I don't know how far he's got in his journey, but Trump's focus is actually China, isn't it? Where we understand a real show's going to be put on for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most important geopolitical relationship in the world. It sort of everything else pales into insignificance compared to that relationship between China and the United States. And I think it's worth saying that actually, like, the fact that Trump is even going to China, that's got to be a positive. I mean, Joe Biden never went to China. I remember well when his Secretary of State was due to go, Tony Blinken, and then that trip was dramatically pulled when a Chinese spy balloon was shot down over the United States. So this relationship really matters, and it has not been good of late. And so the fact he's going is really important. But, you know, it does strike me, China's foreign policy is kind of about patience, it's about observation, self-control, combined together in a sort of long game for strategic gain. And right now, America's foreign policy appears to me to be the opposite of all that. It's certainly not about patience, it's certainly not about observation, and it's not a long game. So they're very different countries, they're in very different positions, but they really need to get on well, which is why this trip is all important. And it was due to happen in March, Anna, but it got delayed because Trump had just got embroiled in his Iranian adventure. And he delayed it. He asked for it to be delayed to now, presumably because he thought Iran would be over. But Iran is not over. Iran is still a problem, although just as we were talking to him earlier on, he was busy telling everyone who listened that Iran is not a problem. Iran is solved. It's clearly not solved. It's still a massive problem. In fact, it's a greater problem now. Not only does it want to retain its nuclear capability, but it also now has the Strait of Hormuz to use as a bargaining chip. And there was one other thing, Anna, that's kind of domestic, but I thought it was really interesting. He was asked about energy prices in America because inflation is at a 3-year high. Petrol prices, massive here as they are there. And he said something fascinating. He said, and I'm trying to find it here, he said that he doesn't really care about the Americans' economic situation. The only thing he cares about, he said, is Iran not having a nuclear weapon. I think in an American domestic context, that is really, really tone deaf. Him saying up front, I don't really care about the American people's economic situation.
Yes, and we can see how ugly post-election backwash gets here in this country. It's a midterm year. It's an interesting prospect if that's how he goes into that election. Mark, it'll be a real relief to talk about something else when he lands in China. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you. So we've had The Times in. It is yet another newspaper that is leading on the Starmer and Streeting showdown in number 10 tomorrow. We will cover that in just a moment. But also take a look at these pictures. Yes, it's saw off Liz Truss. Now the Daily Star lettuce is back, this time for guess who? See you in a moment.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent. We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction. I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls, and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered, people were kidnapped.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are.
breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky's security and defence editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Well, we've got more of the newspapers to look through now with James and with Salma, including the Daily Mail. Paralysed by Labour chaos, the paper says. Paralysed is an interesting word because the problem is, Salma, that paralysis during a leadership contest at a time of potential devastating economic news, war in Iran, war in Ukraine. I mean, it's unbelievably terrible timing, isn't it?
Not just that, but there are so many people that are dependent in the structure of government. Hundreds of thousands of civil servants in Whitehall, agencies, foreign posts, they're dependent on that political direction. And when you have something like this, you are going to take up time on things that are not mission critical or urgent for the country. And that's why I do have a lot of sympathy with the Prime Minister on, why have a leadership contest now? Because there are still things that they can do in order to improve the electoral situation. But losing this time in this Parliament now does not improve tangible things for people.
And we saw inflation go up. We've seen long-term government borrowing costs go up, which means it's more expensive for every single one of us and for anything the government wants to do. You wanted to come in.
People will be literally paying the price for this. But I think there's also another issue, which is, what is it that other Labour Prime Ministers are going to do? We haven't seen any policy prospectus from any of them, and sure, they'll be wanting to save some of that for a leadership contest if there is one. But at the end of the day, the bond markets are still going to control how much money this country can borrow, or rather control what rate of interest is charged on it. And so any new Prime Minister is going to find themselves between, the rock of the Parliamentary Labour Party and the hard place of the bond markets.
Let's take a look at a couple of the red tops, shall we? The Sun, first of all, crisis, what crisis? Suggesting the Starmer shrugged off the mutiny with his reaction in Cabinet. Daily Star says he's the talking dead, the PM in a zombie Parliament. But they've also given us this video. That is the Liz Truss lettuce. Obviously not the actual Liz Truss lettuce, but it's back. It's here for Starmer. Let's remind ourselves about Liz Truss's lettuce, shall we? The before and the after, while we talk about it. Good idea, do you think? Or are you worried this puts pressure on him?
The original lettuce, the OG,
there we go.
the OG lettuce, was introduced towards the end of Liz Truss's very, very brief reign. It was actually inspired by a column in The Economist suggesting she wouldn't last as long as a lettuce. And it lasted a full week from when they started, which was longer than she did.
We've run out of time. James, Salma, back in just a moment with the top stories.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter.
I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Tonight on the wrap, civil war in the Labour Party. The cabinet is divided, 4 ministers have quit and nearly 90 Labour MPs are calling on Keir Starmer to go. But the Prime Minister has thrown down the gauntlet to his critics. Challenge him or get on with your jobs. The man who could decide if these are Keir Starmer's final days in Downing Street is the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. The two will hold talks inside number 10 tomorrow.
When Wes Streeting walks through this door tomorrow morning, will he tell the Prime Minister he's poised to mount a challenge? Or will he, as some MPs are claiming tonight, have bottled it?
But the Prime Minister has his supporters too. 113 MPs have publicly backed Starmer and declared this is no time for a leadership contest. And as the Labour Party falls out with itself, there are reports that the palace has voiced concerns about the King being dragged into the political crisis when he attends tomorrow's state opening of Parliament. Well, we discussed the day's biggest stories with the former Conservative Special Advisor, Salma Shah, and Keir Starmer's former Director of Communications, James Lyons. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including yet more speculation over the PM's future. Well, hello, good evening. Salma, James, welcome to both of you as well. So another astonishing day at Westminster. More resignations, a divided Labour Party, and we still don't know if Wes Streeting will back the Prime Minister or try to take his job. Well, Salma and James, busy day tomorrow. It's not yet over, but will it be soon?
I think, given that the genie is now at the bottle, the Prime Minister will be forced at some point to say how and when he's going to stand down or have that decision taken out of his hands. But it wasn't today, and it could well have been. So I think they will chalk that up as a success in Downing Street and move on.
Salma.
I'm afraid this is not going to go away, and we keep saying it's a matter of if, not when. But I have to say, very disappointing, because not only is it Keir Starmer's political career that's on the precipice, it's also the fate of the whole of the UK.
OK, well, our political editor, Beth Rigby, spent the day in Downing Street. This is her report.
The weekly gathering of Cabinet, but nothing run-of-the-mill about this.
Ed Miliband, is it time for Keir Starmer to stand down? Are you going to tell him to go, sir? Are you going to tell him to go?
Can the PM hold on?
Is it all over for Keir Starmer, sir?
A huge amount at stake.
Wes Streeting, are you going to challenge the Prime Minister? Wes Streeting, are you challenging for the Labour leadership, sir? What are you going to say to Keir Starmer?
For a Prime Minister teetering on the edge.
Are you backing Keir Starmer? Peter, are you backing Keir Starmer or Wes Streeting? Liz, are you backing Keir Starmer?
Now questions being openly asked about whether the Cabinet should call time on Starmer as calls for his resignation continue to grow from mutinous Labour MPs and ministerial aides. But the PM kicking off Cabinet by digging in, telling colleagues the last 48 hours had been destabilising for the government, that a leadership challenge had not yet been triggered, and as such, he and his Cabinet should get on with the job of governing. Cabinet over and the fight back in full throttle, loyalists lining up to voice support. Baroness Chapman, you have been a long-term ally and close friend of Keir Starmer's.
Yes.
You've known him a long time. How is he?
He's great. He's good. He's focused. He's resilient. He's determined. He's not... I've heard some people say that he is like obstinately, or being defiant. That is not at all his vibe.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened. So we all intend to get on with our jobs, and that's what I'm going to do.
Where was Cabinet, and what did everyone say when Keir Starmer said a leadership race had not been triggered?
Well, it's the fact. We've had a very purposeful Cabinet meeting talking about the big issues facing our economy and society.
Ms Kendall, what happened? What happened in the Cabinet?
This government will do what we were elected to do, which is serve the British people. The Prime Minister has my full support in this.
But then the ministerial resignations began. First, Miatta Fambule, Housing Minister. Then, the biggest name yet, Jess Phillips, the Safeguarding Minister, who told the PM, "I know you care deeply, but deeds, not words, are what matter." Next came Alex Davis-Jones, the Victims Minister, followed by Zabir Ahmed, a Health Minister and key Streeting ally. And in response by late afternoon, another loyalist, David Lammy, was dispatched.
No one seems to have the names to stand up against Keir Starmer. And for those who are suggesting that he should stand down, they should say which candidate would be better. let's get on with the business of running this country and government. That's what I've been doing today.
It's a little calmer in number 10 this evening. One insider tells me the mood is a lot better tonight than it was this morning, as cabinet ministers and more than 100 MPs come out publicly to support the embattled PM. I'm told by senior figures that many left-leaning MPs are rowing in behind Keir Starmer because they want to wait for Andy Burnham to be back in Parliament before they move against the Prime Minister. But it's all extremely uncertain. Over 85 MPs want Starmer gone. And there's a very open question as to whether Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, will try to trigger a leadership race. He comes to number 10 on Wednesday for a showdown with Starmer. For now, the PM adopting a keep calm and carry on approach, out meeting apprentices this afternoon. But as they embark on their careers, this is a Prime Minister mulling the end of his own. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
So that was today. Let's look ahead to tomorrow. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins us now. It's already a busy day. You know, we've seen rehearsals for the King's speech underway. We know there's a debate then afterwards. But before all of that, the confrontation, if I can call it that, John, between Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer, a conversation that we understand Wes Streeting tried to have today after that cabinet meeting.
Yes, he wanted to talk to the Prime Minister in private after the meeting. Told PM said, too busy, or somebody said on his behalf, and you saw in the pictures in Beth's report that while all the other ministers came to talk to the journalists, and he was scurrying down the street, obviously a bit frustrated. I'm told government whips believe that, I've been speaking to one in the last few minutes, they believe it'll be quite a short meeting because the Prime Minister will say, you've either got to resign or stop briefing against me. I'm not briefing against you. And that'll be the end of the meeting, apparently. Now, the government whips believe that he hasn't bottled it and that they think he's going to make his move on Thursday because it's felt that it would not be right to do it on the day of the King's speech. And there has been, as I've been reporting this evening, a bit of a sort of lull in hostilities this evening. And Beth was reporting that in her report as well. Things calmed down a bit. They replaced all those junior ministers who quit. I think the Natalie Fleet appointment's a very eye-catching one. She gave a very emotional interview to Cathy Newman a week or two ago about how the fact she was raped and she was with her daughter as a result of that. And the Prime Minister's also had a frosty call with John Swinney tonight. But yeah, showdown. I'd agree with that.
Look, you're trying to read the papers upside down. There's the Times. Then let's have a look, shall we? So Starmer and Streeting set for a number 10 showdown.
I would agree with that.
And the Telegraph also has it on the front page as well, Streeting to confront Starmer.
Yes, I think that's right. And as I say, the whips believe that he will make his move on Thursday. Meanwhile, of course, the contents of the Queen's speech... King. I will say that. Do you know, I remember I was at a party conference not that long ago and I said Prince Charles instead of King Charles. Anyway.
Easily done.
We all do.
You won't be getting the knighthood, John.
But anyway...
You won't be getting the knighthood.
So the King's speech is tomorrow, and at 10:30 we had details of what is going to be in it. 35 bills, you were telling us.
Yes, that's right. Slogans and jargon, in my view, a lot of it. A lot of, as the Prime Minister is very fond of saying, his latest slogan, a stronger, fairer country, weather the storm of global shocks and so on, moves to help business, small businesses, the government says, also on energy. Of course, very controversial because the government's political opponents are very critical of net zero and so on. I mean, here's a heading, ending the opportunity crisis. What on earth does that mean? It's a slogan, I suppose, isn't it?
Are you looking at James at this point, former communications chief? What does that mean, James?
Press releases like this.
Certainly not, John. Mine were much better.
You had operatives to do it for you. Yeah. Strengthen public services, reformed state, more reforms in the NHS, police and special educational needs, and so on. A bill to accelerate reform needed to strip back bureaucracy, improve patient care, support early intervention. Legislation to protect much-needed social housing stock, better protect domestic abuse survivors be included. and so on. Legislation, tackling the cost of living.
These are
and
pictures
so
from the
on.
last one, John. It is a day of absolute pomp and ceremony. You know, it is a beloved spectacle, let's put it. And yet the backdrop of all of this is this utter confusion. And the reports are that the palace raised concerns about the king being sucked into this, you know, this Labour psychodrama, this awful word psychodrama that everyone talks about. And actually, it felt like it quietened down in terms of the number of people who are coming out saying they wanted the PM to leave, you know, after that message went out.
The reason the palace were alarmed, because this time last night, the Prime Minister looked dead and buried. He looks as though he was, mix my metaphors, toast. If you could be dead and buried and be toast at the same time. But things did calm down. I mean, there was a real fight back at the Cabinet because the Prime Minister read that defiant statement, which I thought was very loyally, well, there isn't a process. I mean, I reckon that Lord Hermer, his brief, the Attorney General, was in there drafting that. And the comparison I made earlier today was that when the brief says to the superintendent of the police station, well, if you're not going to charge my client, you'll have to let him go.
Salma.
Well, there's just one thing I wanted to ask, John, is that, you know, for the debate on the King's speech, it's going to be interesting. So even if the Labour benches simmer down, this is going to be an opportunity for the opposition MPs to make hay with it as well. So the palace can influence the government in this, but it doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a lot of knocks that he's going to take in the chamber.
And there is talk this evening of some of the opposition parties, no doubt including the Conservatives, putting down amendments. The SNP, in what might be one of Stephen Flynn's last acts before he takes the high road up to Holyrood, I'm told, is going to put down this House has no confidence in the government and the Prime Minister. So he is to try and flush out some Labour rebels.
He's the outgoing SNP leader in Westminster who's got an MSP's job up in Scotland, and many people lament that he's leaving. But so that's very interesting if that happens. In the meantime, you know, what do you make of this loyally approach, sticking to process, the fact that actually in Cabinet nobody had a chance to come forward, or that was the reports? Is that very Keir Starmer of him?
Well, absolutely. You know, he's saved his skin today by acting in the most Keir Starmer way possible, insisting that his leadership can't be discussed because it's not on the agenda. But I think it's interesting what John's saying about the whips talking up the prospect of a West Streeting challenge on Thursday, because, of course, if it doesn't materialise, they'll then accuse him of bottling. He will be out anyway on Thursday because it's the monthly NHS performance stats. But actually, possibly more interestingly, it's the Progress Conference rally on Saturday, which is the Blairite wing inside. And clearly, you know, that is Wes Streeting's people. And I don't know if they're planning to sort of lower him from the ceiling to the sound of harps, but I suspect it won't be far off.
And then, next week, potentially, we might have more Mandelson papers, which starts to once again put the focus on Keir Starmer and his judgment about appointing Lord Mandelson to be our man in Washington, which unearths all of this that's gone quiet for the moment. This clearly isn't... I mean, if he survives till, you know, next week, when it could be, that's really bad for him again.
Well, the Mandelson scandal has nearly finished him at least twice, hasn't it? You know, there were we talked earlier on about the moment that, as Ed Miliband put it, the Labour MPs stared into the abyss and pulled back when the latest revelations happened. And as I said, you know, now they're staring into the abyss, and some of them are seeing Ed Miliband grinning back at them, which is why they're pulling back. So that will be a very, very tricky moment, but not just for the Prime Minister, right? I mean, the terms of the humble address, which is the parliamentary procedure which has been used to get all of these messages off of anyone that Peter Mandelson was in contact with in government.
Including Wes Streeting, perhaps?
Well, Wes Streeting's already made some of his public.
He has,
I think he's trying to clear the decks in that way, but lots of other people haven't. And what we saw in COVID was when there was that huge dump of documents, all sorts of fascinating and embarrassing things came out. I'm reminded of Dominic Cummings' rather disobliging comments about the cabinet, which I can't repeat on this show.
OK, that's going to be really interesting, isn't it? We'll wait for that. There's hurdles to pass before that. Today, 87 is the total now of the Labour MPs who've come out asking for Keir Starmer to go, although 113 have put their name to a letter asking for him to stay, to be fair. 4 ministers as well who resigned. So let's take a look at those. Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, you know, she's had a really key role, hasn't she? Communities Minister Miata Fahnbulleh, Health Minister Zubair Ahmed, and Victims Minister Alex Davis-Jones. Well, this is what Miata Fahnbulleh told Cathy Newman a little earlier.
I hope he will do the right thing. I hope he will put in place a proper process and a transition so that we can have a range of people who can set out their stall, set out their vision for the country, tell us how they will deliver on our mandate, on our manifesto in the most ambitious way forward.
Salma, is it too much to say changing one man at the top can change the fortunes of the Labour Party and indeed the country?
I'm afraid, even though we have a system that is completely dependent on a Prime Minister, we've always acknowledged that he or she is first among equals. So all these people in Cabinet who are now going to make a play for this job, they are all part of a government that has been delivering the same agenda. And I do agree with James and what he said earlier, is that actually the fundamentals don't change. You still have a conflict in Iran that is driving up inflation. You still have a slowing economy. You still have a lot of the same issues that you're not going to be able to change overnight. But what you are going to do with changing this one key person is create carnage within the civil service that is supposed to be delivering this, where they are hundreds of thousands of people in Whitehall are going to have to change tack and now try and serve a new political master. It is going to be really painful for all of us, not just the government, which doesn't sit separate to us, or the Labour Party or Parliament. This has real consequences.
Yeah, and one of the arguments for those who are urging Keir Starmer to stay in post is because of the geopolitical situation and the economic, fallout from that. Inflation we saw going up again. In the meantime, our correspondent in America, Mark Stone, managed to get a question to Donald Trump about what advice he would offer Keir Starmer.
Thank you. Mark Stone from Sky News. What's your advice to Keir Starmer, sir? He seems to be on the brink.
Well, my advice to him has always been, open up your oil in the North Sea. You got one of the great oil finds anywhere in the world, and you're not using it. They're not allowed to use it. And it's one of the best in the world, among the best oils in the world. Open up your oil in the North Sea and get tough on immigration.
Should he stay or go?
Europe is being very, very hurt by immigration all over Europe.
Did he stay or go?
That's up to him. But I've told him from day one, you're getting killed on energy. You're windmilling your country to death. Open up the North Sea. You have one of the greatest sources of energy in the world. Open up the North Sea.
The pressure is from Nigel Farage, sir.
Yes, open up the North Sea. I'm reading from the King's Speech press release we got, John. We need to get off the fossil fuel roller coaster with clean, homegrown power. And we also need to deliver clean energy, technology and vital grid infrastructure. But I mean, he's picked on two things which any new leader, should there be one, will have to tackle, which is the clamour in this country for migration to be tackled, and also what to do about the cost of energy and our energy security.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the irony is that actually the government is making progress on migration slowly, painstakingly.
In what way?
Well, legal migration is way, way, way down, and actually...
But some of those changes were brought in by Rishi Sunak,
well,
to be fair.
It has continued to fall under this government with nearly 2 years in, and actually small boat numbers are down by about a third so far this year, and we've got some really important reforms that Shabana Mahmood is bringing forward. So, I actually wrote for the Times the other day that, the Labour Party shouldn't go left at this moment and they shouldn't junk Shabana's reforms, let alone Shabana. On energy security, I've got some sympathy with the President's argument there. I think if you look towards Norway, there's no contradiction between renewables. Norway's got 98% renewable energy, and they're still drilling baby drill.
I mean, literally, that paragraph felt like it was written for or by Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband, who Steve Swinford of The Times had said he would throw his hat into the ring if West Streeting stands. That's been denied by his people as mischief-making, John. I mean, there's the potential runners and riders. Ed Miliband went to the country and he was not voted in. I mean, to be fair, Andy Burnham stood twice to be Labour leader and did not win as well.
And Ed Miliband has said quite a few times, look, I've had a stint at being leader, I don't want to do that again.
The New Statesman was suggesting that he could come in as a caretaker to wait for Andy Burnham to eventually join Parliament. I mean, is there any way that a deal... You're looking at me again, James.
So I'm going to change Prime Ministers twice.
The caretaker thing never works.
Absolutely wild.
No, that's not
one thing the Whips also believe is that Burnham's not going to find an MP to step down.
You think he's not?
That's what they think.
Well, but even though they say constituencies have been listed, etc., you think that's not
there
true?
are definitely some constituencies coming up in Scotland. Well,
Yeah,
you know, he could become a king of the High North.
But why? But what are the chances, given what you've just seen in terms of the elections, that actually, if somebody stands down, it will still be a Burnham victory? Because we have seen, in fact, we talked about it on Sky last week. Is there a Burnham effect? Because we didn't see it in Greater Manchester at the locals in terms of his campaigning.
Well, if you talk to pollsters like Luke Trill, for example, who's done a lot of insight work on that patch, he is convinced that there is a kind of Burnham effect and he would be all right in a by-election. But my God, as I used to say when I was a journalist, that by-election would be good for trade, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Well, at the moment, we're in stasis, a sense of paralysis or a standoff, which is how the Daily Mirror has described it. Plenty more on this, and we'll start to look at the newspapers as well. Again, another night of difficult reading, it has to be said, for Number 10. Back in a moment.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off.
And make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs?
He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighbourhood has rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for Number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
So where are we then? 113 Labour MPs have publicly backed the Prime Minister, but nearly 90 want him to go. Let's hear from some of them.
This just can't go on. And as I've said all of yesterday, if we carry on like this, we are literally giving the keys away to the front of number 10 to Nigel Farage.
This is not factional. It's not the right wing of the party eating the left wing or vice versa. This is us just wanting better for our constituents and for the United Kingdom. And sadly, he just doesn't cut through on the door anymore.
Let me just repeat, that is the Labour Party that has the mandate. And he, with what is the most disastrous local authority election result in living memory, he should consider his position.
Leadership is about knowing when to lead and knowing when to step down. And I think Keir Starmer must come to that realisation now that the country isn't behind him. At a time when we need real unity in our country, someone that can bring the country together, he has got to think beyond himself now.
We need to have certainty about the future direction of the Labour Party in this government, and I hope everyone can come together and start setting out this process, because it's clear when you look at the numbers, nearly 100 MPs now have come out and said that they think it's time for leadership. You can't put that genie back into the bottle.
So, James, you know, we've got the vision, we've got, you know, pictures of all of those who've decided to step forward and say they don't want Keir Starmer to stay. Are they all the usual suspects? And which sides of the party do
Well,
they
a remarkable number of them, like Diane Abbott, were more than happy to let Jeremy Corbyn lose 2 general elections, but now want to bin off Keir Starmer after a landslide.
Mm. And what about everyone else, though?
Well, I mean, I say there are. She's not the only one on that list who falls into that category. And it's been astonishing, though, to see the kind of mental gymnastics of some on the harder left of the Labour Party and the campaign group who are demanding a change of Prime Minister, but not quite yet.
John, I mean, who, you know, in broad brush, don't need names, but in broad blocks, you know, how does the Labour Party divide?
Well, the 80 or so, it's about roughly half and half. Between the usual suspects, MPs on the left, and it's about 40 or so are from the 2024 intake. And a whip I was talking to was saying 80 or so have gone public. There's probably twice that number, the same number privately who share their views but haven't gone public yet. So I'm surprised, actually, at how high the numbers are amongst the 2024 intake. I thought it would just be the usual suspects, the malcontents, the grumpy old timers, the people who've been sacked in the last reshuffle.
But
there's a few of those.
It was the same after 2019, because actually there is this thing where you lose that institutional knowledge. You have people who've come into Parliament for the first time. They see a set of results like that. A bit of panic does ensue. You don't have the sort of greybeards, for want of a better phrase, who can try and calm anything down in the parliamentary party. So it's actually, we've seen this happen before.
I would agree with that. You know, these are people who are not sort of battle-hardened, battle-tested. They've only known, some of them, the kind of good times of a Labour landslide, and now, you know, they don't seem to have the bottle for it.
Well, we know that Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair both spent more than a decade in Downing Street, but recent Prime Ministers, you know, seem to fall quite early, do they not? Take a look at this graph of those who have survived. The longest there is Boris Johnson, 3 years and 44 days. What is it about the churn? Why are we so happy to get rid of our Prime Ministers, do you think?
Well, I think there's 2 things. One is that each of those Prime Ministers, you know, actually did face real challenges. Theresa May having lost her majority in the 2017 election, Boris Johnson having faced COVID and a whole sort of series of scandals in his premiership, and his government became ungovernable. Liz Truss obviously had spooked the markets to a great extent, not dissimilar to what we're seeing now. And Rishi Sunak had to come in, and by that point, everybody was tired of the Conservatives. But, you know, there's an electoral shift as well. People just don't have the same core support for Prime Ministers or parties.
John, sum it up in a sentence.
I was going to say, it's a frivolous point, but I've been pointing out the last couple of days that if there is a change of Prime Minister, Larry the Cat will be on his 7th Prime Minister.
Gives you pause for thought, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. David Cameron.
But look, I would just say David Cameron is sort of falsely flattered by this discussion, because, you know, he was in a coalition government which was inherently more stable, and actually, left to his own devices, he didn't last very long at all.
Yeah, well, Brexit saw that, didn't
Well, yeah, but the reason we had Brexit is because the Lib Dems weren't in government to stop it.
OK.
He did manage a coalition, though, which in and of itself is quite a difficult task for any Prime Minister.
And actually might be what's coming our way. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, John, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you, obviously, tomorrow. Very, very busy day. Thank you. Right now, past, let's take a look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. So let's start with the Metro calling the PM's residence number 10 Doubting Street as uncertainty continues over how much longer Sir Keir Starmer will live there. According to the Financial Times, the Prime Minister used a cabinet meeting this morning to tell his team to either mount a leadership challenge or get behind him. The Eye phrases his message more bluntly, put up or shut up. The Guardian reports that despite allies of Wes Streeting being among the ministers who have resigned, an expected leadership challenge from the Health Secretary didn't materialise today. But the Telegraph leads with Wes Streeting preparing for a showdown with Sir Keir in Downing Street tomorrow. The showdown also reported, as you can see, by The Times. The Star says the PM is now leading a zombie government, or the talking dead, as it puts it. While the Express pleads with him for the good of your country, go now. While Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner are pictured next to the Prime Minister, which the Mirror calls a standoff. Crisis, what crisis, writes The Sun, as Keir Starmer gives a thumbs up despite fighting for his political life. Paralysed by Labour chaos, the Daily Mail offers a scathing view of events in Westminster. So we saw the front page of the Daily Star there, the talking dead, PM in a zombie parliament, but they've also released this picture of, guess what, the lettuce. It is back, the Liz Truss lettuce. The point is, I suppose, how much longer will he last?
This is a matter of weeks of where he's going to set out his timetable, because even if he resists it, I think the forces that are seeking to move him will be stronger.
What's definitely true is his salad days are over.
Did you hear that? Salad days are over. There's their video. Guess who's back? It's the lettuce. It's a great long production number by the Daily Star. Yes, let's play it. And while it's playing... That's on there. I can think my phone's going off. And while we're looking at that, we will then see the before and after of Liz Truss with her 49 days. We're trying to remember exactly when the Liz Truss lettuce came out.
Week
2, week 3 of Liz Truss?
It was whenever she crashed the bond markets, I think, is when it happened.
The lettuce was only there for 7 days, but it still managed to outlast her.
Yeah, so right towards the end.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've got the before and after. OK, let's have a look. Oh, I don't know. We've got the Star inside pages. Let's see that instead then, OK? There we go. Oh, that is, in fact, the before and after. How long can we let us... I can't, it's too far away for me to see.
Let us, Liz, remain.
OK, can we let Liz...
You gotta love the Star.
There we go. Right, anyway, so that is the Star setting out its own timetable for what happens next. Should we go to the newspapers now? We've seen those ones about the showdown tomorrow, haven't we, which is the Times and the Telegraph. You know, how critical is this meeting? Why is Wes Streeting so reluctant to get out the gates first?
I think he feels that, in the old saying, whoever wields the dagger never wears the crown, but I don't think that is necessarily true at all. But the problem is that his supporters have gone around saying he won't trigger a contest. He'll wait for it all to fall apart. Now, what is the definition of it all falling apart? There is not a dictionary definition of that. So that is at least a slightly elastic term that gives him a little bit of leeway. But, actually, what we're seeing, and I think we're going to come to this in a second in the Mirror, is a rerun of the tactics that Gordon Brown used against David Miliband, where and Kevin Maguire is writing about this inside on page 7.
So this is a double-page spread in the Daily Mirror, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And what's been obvious for some time is that supporters of the Prime Minister are basically, trying to stare down Wes Streeting and say, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. And the briefing that the Labour whips had given to John Craig, that he was talking about just now, sounds like the latest instalment of that. Wes is going to go on Thursday, he's going to go on Thursday. Oh, no, he's bowled it.
Yeah. So there's, in a way, potentially setting him up to put that messaging out there is to try and stymie his momentum.
Flush him out, yeah. They did that to David Miliband more than once, and it was very, very successful. But, it's very entertaining to see that Gordon hasn't lost his Midas touch, and at the weekend he'd only been an advisor to the Prime Minister for a matter of hours before there's a leadership challenge.
In terms of, Morgan McSweeney has gone, the man who helped make him Prime Minister and was then his Chief of Staff, had to resign over the Mandelson affair. Who's helping Keir Starmer with what to do about his strategy now in Downing Street?
As things stand, there is no permanent Chief of Staff, no Director of Strategy and no Director of Communications. But there are
that's hard for him, right?
There is a small band of loyal folk who have been around him for a long time. I will obey the code of the Union of Advisors and not name them, but there are people who've been there on the kind of long march who will be around him now.
OK. Do you fear for, his mental well-being with this pressure, or is that kind of what you sign up to when you take this job on?
The Prime Minister?
Yeah.
I think the Prime Minister is one of the most remarkably resilient people I have ever met. And he will not, I don't think, he will not doubt for a moment he is the right person to lead this country and lead his party through the crisis that we currently face due to war on two fronts and soaring, cost of living.
But isn't there some truth to the Sun front page where they're sort of saying crisis, what crisis, with the Prime Minister, is that perhaps he sometimes is a little bit politically oblivious to things? I mean, let's put it in the context of this West Streeting meeting tomorrow. How is he going to handle that? So he refuses to see him, knowing that he's a potential rival and he could either stabilise or destabilise the government for the time period. How is he thinking about actually dealing with this? Because this is not going to go away. Of course there are wars and conflicts, but keeping things together at home and in his own cabinet is a reflection on whether he is capable or not to do this. And I say this, as you know, as somebody who does not want to see the chaos of a change of Prime Minister.
Yeah, and I think what he'll do is face down West Street and say, basically, come on then if you think you're hard enough, which is the strategy. But we've been talking a lot tonight.
Just quickly
about...
on that, if there was a contest which begins because one person has more than 81 MPs. Would he also...
That isn't actually what triggers the contest. What triggers the contest is someone writing to the National Executive Committee to ask for the contest to be started, and then people can gather names for the...
so it's a very simple trigger, basically.
Yeah, that's right. I was just going to say very quickly, we've been talking a lot about the past, and we're going back to the future again here with that Sun headline, because that was Jim Callaghan in 1979, although he actually never said it.
Oh. There we are. Another great political myth, then. I think we'll take a break now, unless we just very quickly see the Daily Mail. I don't know if you can find that. It's the word paralysis. It's a reason why people like you are nervous about the change of leadership again, because you'll have months when the government has its eye off the ball of the critical matters of the day.
Yeah, there is a real cost to changing the Prime Minister. There is a cost to the system, there is a cost on time, and ultimately, if the markets are spooked, if people lose confidence in the state of Britain, then we are all going to pay for it.
I think we might do some other stories after the break. We've got, if you want to, we don't have to. He's not sure.
Are there any?
We've got a daily pill to keep you thin for life, and we've got President Xi with a spring in his step as he welcomes Trump. Should we do those? Well, we'll see. We'll have a chat. Back in a moment.
urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Now we're actually going to look at some other stories now. We've had a discussion. I've got away with it. They're going to be OK. So Salma and James are going to try us on this one, which is a lovely first paragraph in the Times World section. China's latest propaganda video is entitled, "In Trumpian Capitals, Peaceful Coexistence. The skies are clear and sunny over both New York and Beijing as young American and Chinese people link arms and wave." OK, what is happening? It is the arrival of Trump to China.
Yes, the arrival of President Trump to go and see President Xi, of course, you know, really touted as an important moment in global politics. But the president currently goes with a weaker hand as a consequence of the Iran crisis. And there are going to be some really critical issues on the table, most critically from my perspective, around Taiwan.
Yes.
And there's always been that discussion since the invasion in Venezuela and also now in the Strait of Hormuz. What does this do to China?
People are actively talking about whether China could lean on Iran to sort out the Strait of Hormuz, and the pressure point will then be that the Americans pull back military support for Taiwan. I mean, these are really big issues they're going to be discussing.
Huge, yeah, and I think you know it's going to be fascinating to see what comes out of it, and of course the propaganda video is very entertaining, but there is an awful lot at stake in these conversations.
Well, let's head to the other war, shall we? Putin is getting pressure, we're being told by the Eye, to end the war in Ukraine. This came after what's supposed to be the great fanfare in Moscow of all the military on display. Didn't have military on display for fear of Ukrainian drone attacks, Summer.
Yeah, and this is fascinating because we see these stories periodically all the time that pressure's growing on Putin from within the sort of Muscovites, the Muscovite elite. But I sort of tend to read this with a pinch of salt because President Putin's attitude towards this war has always been about it being a waiting game. And again, those other conflicts that are now taking the attention of the West, I think, is grist to his mill. So even though there might be pressure because, you know, the sanctions may be taking effect, they're obviously very nervous about what's happening at the front line in Ukraine. I'm not entirely sure that he is going to be paying attention to any of that pressure.
Yes, he's not a waver, is he? Let's go to the hantavirus outbreak, shall we? The cruise passengers, we're being told in the Eye, are facing mental breakdown. Now, you've got first-hand experience of this, I think, haven't you, in terms of, you know, what happened with COVID, same hospital, you know...
That's right. So I was running NHS comms back during COVID, which is obviously a very quiet job. And Arrow Park, this hospital, was one of the quarantine centres. If you remember, we set up quarantine centres for people who came back from abroad. And yeah, there was obviously they're stuck there for a long time, and it's very difficult for them. And you need to, you know, make sure that you do everything you can for
you were shipping in all sorts of stuff, weren't you?
Yeah,
are you allowed to tell us?
They needed food and drink and entertainment and all the rest of it. Yeah. So.
I think it's really important here that they're talking about, you know, there was a question about whether they would be quarantined on the ship, but that is tantamount to sort of inhumane treatment because they have been there for a long time. There's been 3 deaths on the boat. So I think it's important that they are moved and taken off and actually able to be in a different facility where they can get some support.
It must be a terrifying experience to be on a cruise liner when, you know, there is a dead... Presumably there are quite a lot of older people on there, and there is a deadly disease that's spreading through the passengers.
Yes, although they didn't realise that at the beginning, did they? And they carried on, I think, as normal. A mortgage with a £5,000 deposit.
This programme is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of ESL.
Welcome to the DHL Sports Hub on Sky News. Coming up, an admission from Novak Djokovic as his comeback from injury ends in defeat in his opening match at the Italian Open. And as they close in on their first league title in 22 years, might the current Arsenal team be even better than the revered invincible sides of 2004? One of their greatest goal scorers argues the case for Mikel Arteta's squad. But we start with Formula One and some soul-searching from Isaac Hadjar after his mixed start as Max Verstappen's teammate at Red Bull continued in Miami earlier this month. Following an impressive first season where he just missed out on a top 10 finish, Hadjar's only taken 4 points from the first 4 rounds of the 2026 championship. Having retired early on in Australia, he also crashed last time out in Florida when he clipped a wall and went into the barriers. That drew an emotional reaction from the Frenchman, who was seen punching his steering wheel afterwards.
Yeah, I was too eager and too excited about making those moves, and I just ruined myself. It was easy to overtake and should have been more cautious. There was no point trying to flirt with the limit in this corner, so I'm really
What are you going to work on between now and Montreal, do you think? It's been quite a tough weekend for you. What do you want to work on?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I really struggle with my overall pace. So yeah, this is new, and I really need to dig deep because yeah, I don't want another weekend like this.
Isaac is obviously a driver who wears his heart on his sleeve. I think he feels his emotions a lot. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, you know, he's come into this season, had 3 races where actually his pace was very surprising, because we've come very used to seeing Max's teammates being far off the pace, and that hasn't been the case for him. So I'm sure that for him, as he says, it's the first time it's happened to him in a long time. I think when you, as a driver, that happens to you, that all of a sudden you can't put it together and the time's not coming towards you, you start to ask yourself questions. I mean, they've got to get to the bottom of it.
Well, Hadjar's tough start means he's nowhere to be seen at the top of the standings, where Kimi Antonelli leads the way after 3 consecutive Grand Prix wins. He is now 20 points clear of his Mercedes teammate George Russell. Lando Norris had his best weekend of the season so far in Miami, the world champion adding his first DHL fastest lap of the campaign to his sprint win as he made his way to second behind Antonelli in the main race. It was Arvid Lindblad in his Racing Bull who claimed the DHL fastest lap with a time of 2.08 seconds. Antonelli was second, so Mercedes are 3 points behind leaders Ferrari in those standings. And Verstappen was driver of the day, presented by Salesforce, despite dropping from second on the grid to 5th. A good recovery after a 360-degree spin on the opening lap, keeping him in the points. Arsenal could become Premier League champions on Monday after a 1-0 win at West Ham left them on the brink of their first title in 22 years. And one of the club's greatest goal scorers thinks it'll see them eclipse their famous Invincibles team if they can marry that with the Champions League final win over PSG. Mikel Arteta's side would become champions with a home win over Burnley early next week if Manchester City failed to win their game in hand with Crystal Palace tomorrow. The last Arsenal team to win the title ultimately went 49 league games unbeaten, including all 38 in the 2003-04 season. But Ian Wright thinks the current crop might challenge their lofty status.
This team have got the capability of, if they can win it, they'll be invincible in the Champions League. If they can win that and win the Premier League, and that team, the invincible team, as great as they were with their individuals, this team will surpass them with what they've done, because they'll have done something that that team hasn't done, and they've got to get a lot of credit for that, for what they've been through in the journey to get to here with the manager. Obviously playing a very good PSG side, and it's going to be a real battle of styles, but they have got themselves there and they deserve to be there. They've gone through it, like I say, for the 3 years. They've built this squad. They've got the players on the bench to help to come on and finish, like Mikel says, and they've done it up to this point. So if they can finish it off, which I'm praying that they can, of course they have to go down as the best.
English golfer Alex Fitzpatrick will be among those hoping to take their good recent form into the second major of the year this week at the PGA Championship near Philadelphia. His flying start to life on the PGA Tour almost brought him his first individual win in only his second such event at the Truist Championship on Sunday, but he ended up finishing fourth instead. It was Norway's Christoph Reitan who took the title for his first PGA win by 2 shots. Fitzpatrick, who had led going into the final round, was in contention until near the end with a double bogey on the 17th, ultimately leaving him 3 behind. Nevertheless, it's another good finish after he tied for 9th at the Cadillac Championship in Miami.
You know, I felt like I battled really, really well out there. And then just kind of one bad swing cost me on 17. So, but that's the game, and you know that's why we play it. And you know I'm excited for next week now. Obviously, I feel like it's crazy to be disappointed, but somehow I'm a little disappointed. I felt like I didn't play that bad. I kind of got off to a really slow start. Felt like I kind of got unlucky with a few breaks. But yeah, that's the game, and you know I'm happy to see Chris win. He deserves it. He played really, really well today, and yeah, hopefully mine another time.
On to rugby union, where England and France will meet in the last day title decider in this year's Women's Six Nations after wins for both at the weekend. England won 61-33 in Italy and now head to Bordeaux to face the French, who were 69-28 victors in Scotland.
All we've done really is just earn the right to contest another championship, haven't we? So again, we're just going to have to earn the right. And France are playing good rugby as well. So yeah, no, back into another contest where we'll have to earn the right.
I read that you said that winning these Six Nations would have been maybe more important, even more important than winning the last Rugby World Cup. Is that true? Well,
yeah, Deeks, our forward coach, we've been talking about it. I think the coaching group's done wonderfully well in this tournament already, considering the amount of changes that we've had each week. I think they've coached very well. Yeah, and it'll come down to obviously Bordeaux. And really, at the end of the day, we've had a lot of fun in developing some new players for the Red Roses. So I think after this tournament, I think we'll deserve a wine and a beer after how we've actually handled ourselves.
Novak Djokovic admits he's not yet reaching the levels he needs to hit if he's to have any chance of setting a new record for Grand Slam tennis titles this year. The 24 times major winner was eliminated from the second round of the Italian Open by 20-year-old qualifier Dino Prismic as he played his first match since suffering a shoulder injury in March.
I don't think I played so bad, to be honest. Okay, the second set was something to forget, obviously, the way I felt on the court, but first and third was good, was okay. You know, it was a good battle in the end. But you know, obviously, I see what I'm missing. I'm, you know, late half a step. You know, I'm not, you know, not definitely where I want to be for, you know, the highest level and to compete at the highest level and to be able to get far.
Now, Anthony Joshua's clash with Tyson Fury is the big fight boxing fans are looking forward to in the months ahead. But could 2 other British heavyweights come together once again after an epic first meeting on Saturday? Well, that's what many are hoping for after Daniel Dubois came back to beat Fabio Wardley in Manchester and take his WBO world title. Dubois survived 2 knockdowns in the first 3 rounds, including the first, after 10 seconds to force a stoppage in the 11th. It's the second world title of the 28-year-old's career after he took the IBF belt in 2024.
He showed what he's all about. He showed his heart and his fighting spirit, and it's not the end of the world for Fabio afterwards. I mean, it takes 2 to make a fight like that, and Fabio was, I mean, there was times in there you thought Fabio may win the fight, and you know, he's good enough to come back, and he will come back, and we'll be behind him, and we'll make sure we give him all the opportunities.
You mentioned that there is a rematch clause. I know it's early days, but would you expect that to be activated?
It's up to them. It's up to the fighters.
Is it a fight you'd like to promote again?
I would, but I'd like to see them before they do that have a real good rest. They can recharge their batteries and everything.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armour on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?